A lot of people didn't believe, but the Sixers proved the doubters wrong, and they did it last night in Toronto. We'll talk about that victory to advance Philadelphia to the second round of the NBA playoffs and also do a Miami Heat Philadelphia 76ers preview as Jimmy Butler returns to town. But if you're pumped up about the Sixers moving on, I want you to show that you're hype about this basketball squad by hitting that thumbs up icon and liking the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. We'll be doing some playoff watch parties in addition to bringing you multiple videos per week covering the latest Sixers news and rumors. So hit that red subscribe button down below. Let's talk some Sixers basketball right now. You're watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Sr., and everybody in Philadelphia is in a great mood on this Friday. Why is that? The Philadelphia Phillies completed a sweep over the Colorado Rockies. The Philadelphia 76ers able to gut out a Game 6 victory to move on to the second round and avoid a disastrous seventh game in South Philly over the weekend. And the Philadelphia Eagles move up to take Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle out of Georgia, and they make a blockbuster trade for A.J. Brown. So, Philly fans, we are absolutely loving this feeling and really everything going on in the city with our sports teams, but we have to focus on the Sixers getting the job done and completing the task at hand, taking down the Toronto Raptors, avoiding a seventh game, and honestly, I wasn't too confident that the Sixers were going to be able to pull out the victory. They did, and now they're bound for the second round to take on the Miami Heat. So I just want to run through a lot of my takeaways from this playoff series, and of course, we'll do that Miami Heat preview as well. First takeaway, really, following a dominant effort in the six, 132-97 the final score, it was another gutty win for the Sixers. On top of what they were able to do in Game 3 with that Joel Embiid buzzer beater, or game winner, I should say. They went into Toronto, tough place to play, and they won when things were starting to unravel in this series. They were on the brink of explosion. Can you imagine what the talking points would be if they blew this series, becoming the first team in NBA history to blow a 3-0 series lead? Would James Harden be back? Would Doc Rivers be fired? Is Joel Embiid a choke artist? They showed character, they showed focus, they showed toughness, and those are elements of their identity that they hadn't shown in previous years when the times got tough. Before we continue to break this game down, I have so many takeaways that I want to get to on day 2 of the NFL draft. We're really busy here at Chat Sports, but still cooking up the Sixers video. Who was the MVP of Game 6? A lot of really good performances that we'll break down. Embiid, Harden with a pop in his step, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, let me know in the comment section down below. So in the grand scheme of things, another takeaway is that this was an important moment and win for Joel Embiid and his playoff resume. His body language was off after the news came out about the torn ligaments in his thumb. The Sixers' play, I thought, reflected his bad body language in the previous 2 games. He is the leader at the end of the day of this organization. He is the face. He is the franchise. He was fantastic last night on both ends of the floor, and he was able to grab this game really by the throat and say, we are not going back to Philadelphia for Game 7. He took the heat from Toronto, he cusped his ears in classic Allen Iverson fashion, and he shut the Raptors fan base up with 33 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 2 steals, and it looks to me like he's getting a little bit more comfortable with that thumb injury. Going to James Harden now. I thought this was one of his best games as a Philadelphia 76er. We know about the struggles that we've seen that he's had with beating guys off the dribble. But I thought last night he had more explosion. He was a little bit quicker. He played faster last night. The throwdown dunk on the drive to the rack was nice to see. He had some dimes, 15 assists on the night. He made some really big shots on some of those vintage James Harden threes. And in the past, James Harden has had a lot of playoff no-shows, mostly with the Houston Rockets because last year with the Brooklyn Nets, he was injured. But for him to also prove the detractors wrong and have one of those signature playoff games was huge for him and this team. 22 points, 6 boards, 15 dimes, 7 of 12 from beyond the arc, and a couple of those momentous three-pointers were huge for the Sixers. As for Tyrese Maxey, my man, Philadelphia's son, the player that we wanted Markelle Fultz to be. He also grabbed that game by the balls. And to do that as a 21-year-old, that is so impressive and goes to show his makeup, his maturity, and the fact that this guy has stardom built within him. And honestly, with Tyrese Maxey, I'm not surprised that he came out guns a-blazing. That is the IQ and the character makeup of this dude. He has no fear. He has that Mamba mentality. He is a baller. He's a foxhole guy and a big game hunter. 25 points, 8 assists, 8 of 16 from the field, and some really big three-point baskets. Did you believe, moving off that point about Tyrese Maxey, that he, James Harden, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid were going to pull through, given Doc Rivers' playoff history, and lead the Sixers to a win? I want you to be honest, because honestly, I felt as though given the previous playoff failures, Sixers weren't going to win this basketball game. They did. Type Y for yes or type N for no. Now, as I said a little bit earlier, we here at Chat Sports really busy with our NFL draft coverage. On night one, 300,000 people joined us on YouTube. Whole host of other people on Rumble. We'll be live for rounds 2 and 3 and rounds 4 through 7 all throughout the weekend. Make sure you subscribe and join us on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/chatsportstv. We continue to move forward. Tobias Harris, he did it again, and I have to continue to give him props. Since that disastrous Brooklyn Nets game at the start of James Harden's tenure with Philadelphia, when Tobias Harris was bad and he got duked by Kevin Durant, he's played some of the best basketball of his career. Now, when I've watched him in the playoffs in years prior, he's looked a little bit scared. He's looked a little bit skittish. In this playoff series and down the stretch in the regular season, he did not. He was great. He's played downhill basketball, which I think is physical, and that's what the Sixers needed against the long and athletic Toronto Raptors. What's also important, they're going to need that against the Miami Heat too. A couple more quick takeaways before we get to the Miami Heat. Danny Green in this playoff series has made Matisse Thybulle irrelevant. We've forgotten about Matisse Thybulle. Didn't get an opportunity to play in those road games against the Raptors, and honestly, I think the Sixers were better for it. They were fine on defense, and offensively, Danny Green can be counted upon to hit some big threes. He ain't scared to shoot them. Sometimes Matisse Thybulle is, because he simply doesn't have confidence in that three-point shot. The Doc Rivers collapse, it did not happen. What's crazy, Doc had lost 7 of 8 opportunities to win closeout games, and I think that's why a lot of Sixers fans did not have confidence in Philly to pull out a gutty, tough, character makeup type of victory. They did, because in previous years, teams have been wobbly under Doc Rivers' leadership in the playoffs. The Sixers, they were not that last night. Okay, let's get to our Miami Heat preview. Make sure you give me a follow on social media too, because I continue to keep you up to date with the latest Sixers news and rumors here at Chat Sports. Also cover the NBA, NFL, and college football as well. Before we get to this playoff series, I want to ask you for your playoff predictions. It is going to be a tough series. There's no question about that. Round 2, right to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals to play the winner of Celtics-Bucks. Who is victorious in this playoff series? Game 1 on Monday night. Type PHI for the Sixers, MIA for the Miami Heat. Obviously, the playoff series against Miami, it's going to be a dogfight. Miami's a really tough team. They have that playoff makeup, and the Heat culture, mentally tough. Being dogs, player development, great coaching. They're willing to get into back alley brawls. They're not afraid to scrap. And that Miami Heat culture is everything that Joel Embiid has aspired the Sixers culture to be, and it's everything that the Sixers are trying to become as an organization. The Sixers have been mentally fickle in a lot of playoff games throughout this Joel Embiid era. The Miami Heat have not. A lot of these games are going to come down to the wire. Who is tougher down the stretch? It's one of the biggest storylines of this playoff series. The Jimmy Butler storyline. It's fascinating for a couple of reasons. He returns to Philadelphia. The Sixers elected to move forward with Brett Brown and Ben Simmons and not Jimmy Butler. He didn't want to play with Ben Simmons. Easy to see why now. He saw what we've all seen becoming, and he didn't want to play for Brett Brown. Sixers let him go. They paid Tobias Harris. They certainly missed Jimmy Butler and what he could have brought Philadelphia in a couple of these playoff series. Kyle Lowry returning home. He's from Philly, went to Villanova, played under Jay Wright. Obviously, he's going to have more added incentive to hand the Sixers a playoff L. He's a little bit banged up. We'll see what he can bring to the table. From a matchup standpoint, Bam Adebayo against Joel Embiid. One of the biggest matchups of this playoff series. Adebayo doesn't have the girth and the weight of Embiid, but he certainly has the athleticism to match him, and we saw Pascal Siakam as well as Precious Achiuwa gave Embiid some fits throughout this playoff series against Toronto. The Miami Heat defense, it's suffocating. They bottled up Trae Young. They made him look like a Toon Squad player against the Monstars. Like, they were that good against Trae Young. They suffocated him. They frustrated him. They forced Trae Young to turn the basketball over something like 6 times per game. That defensive strategy going to be the same one that they deploy against James Harden. Embiid's health. Is he getting more comfortable coming off that thumb injury and just getting more used to it? I think the last couple of games he's looked a little bit more confident and decisive in some of his decisions. I need James Harden to be aggressive in this playoff series. He's going to have to attack this Heat defense just like he attacked that Toronto defense in Game 6. I think Maxey, Thibault, Danny Green, they're going to play critical roles in this series, especially Tyrese Maxey, to free up from the Sixers falling into some of those defensive traps and taking away some of the double teams from Embiid as well as James Harden. Let me know who you got in this playoff series. PHI for the Sixers, TOR for the Toronto Raptors. Watch parties coming. MIA for the Miami Heat, excuse me. It's been a long day. Had about 5 hours of sleep last night coming off the draft. Let me know who you got in this playoff series. We'll be doing watch parties, pushing out more videos, so make sure you subscribe.